Yeah. So all these things are coming up, right? All these little tools, triggers, mirroring, an ability to see our authentic self. And all of this gives us an opportunity for what? Self-acceptance. Jung says that knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. He says we cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. So when we start to accept more of ourselves, like literally out of a place of just curiosity and compassion, we start to do the same with others, with our partner, with our family or loved ones. And like even strangers, you start to pick up on things that would have triggered you or that you might have projected onto them, some story that you're telling them about the way that they look or how they got to this place. You start to have more empathy and compassion.
I start to ask the questions like there's so many opportunities on social media with just division everywhere and duality and really like kind of just hate spewing all the time. If I see something, that someone is expressing that doesn't line up with something that I embody or believe to be true in my life or whatever, I'm not saying that I'm always perfect at this, but I've noticed over the years as I've had more curiosity and compassion for myself in all areas, and I've noticed that instead of like judging that person for feeling or believing differently, the question in my mind is, I wonder what happened in their life to get them to that conclusion. Like, I wonder what has accumulated in their life that would lead them to that truth for themselves, which I think is a really, it feels certainly better than hate and judgment for sure.
Sure.
Just this curiosity. And this is really important, this concept of acceptance first. We can only grow from this place of acceptance. We've said this many times, sprinkled here and there in different podcast episodes, but shame and guilt is important to observe in ourselves, but it's not an inspirational emotion. In my experience, it does not foster long-lasting, real transformation. It keeps us stuck in past stories. If we are operating from shame, we're operating from the past. Whatever happened in the past that made us feel shame, guilt, or judgment for ourselves, and it doesn't have this quality of evolution. It's keeping you in the past and stuck, really. So on the other hand, compassion and curiosity really facilitate creativity, which then allows us to consider what we actually want to create, what we actually want to experience in our life. It must start with acceptance. And we also see this play out in stages of grief. These are, common. You can Google them. The stages of grief when, say, someone dies. First, there's denial, there's anger, then bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. Acceptance is this last stage from when the person now can, okay, I can take the lessons, or I can move on, or I can evolve through this process, through this really difficult situation. We must experience the non-acceptance first, though, to give context, to really understand what acceptance truly feels like in our life. And I can, speak to that fully. Like when I was operating out of shame and guilt and non-acceptance of myself, it felt really, really bad all the time. And I'm so glad I have that context though, because now the acceptance is like, oh my God, it's like taking a breath, like a full breath of air out of breathing through a straw for 10 years.
Yeah. This is so spot on as it pertains to just personal and spiritual evolution and growth, because these stages of grief typically are associated with death and divorce. And if you're reaching the point where you're looking at acceptance of yourself, it's indicative, it's a great sign. It's indicative that you are hitting kind of the last phase of grieving your ego's death. And this loop of acceptance is like, wow, I've moved on, kind of the denial that I don't need to work on some of these things, maybe the anger, the frustration, the depression, and then I'm moving into this place of being open and accepting of who I might be beyond this mask. And that's where it's a good sign. Last point, kind of on the just the psychology of relationships as teachers and why it's so important is like we said, relationships are these mirrors. Don't take a hammer to the mirror. I think where we really get tripped up is that we start shooting the messenger, being our partner, who's just literally holding the reflection of what we're putting on. So like, this is the opportunity where growing as a human being really comes through, and it strikes us the hardest. They mirror back to us all of those places within us where we're blind, where our egos refuse to look, where maybe we actually have like unfinished business from our families or our ancestors, maybe some deprogramming of unhealthy patterns by people who raised us, or even like zooming all the way back out, understanding and rebalancing some of these macro human archetypal patterns that are at play in our life. So unfortunately, I think we end up shooting the messenger before we get to any of these phases, getting angry at our significant others, at other people who are showing us our own shit. But these will lie dormant and unresolved unless you move past this